Good morning. I'm Brooke, and I've done a paper. It's a section of a longer paper I did last year, and it's on focusing on one characteristic of the Hui people, which is that they are liminal people, I've decided. So first of all, who are the Hui people? They are Muslims in China. There are 10 officially recognised people groups that are Muslims, and this is the only one where the defining feature of their people group is a religion. The others would be like Uyghurs or Kazakhs or Kyrgyz, people who have some kind of a different language or a nation outside China they would call home. Some other things where if they cease to be Muslim, they would still be that, their people group. But for a Hui person, if they cease to be Muslim, they find it very difficult to say how they are different from the Han Chinese. Han being the majority, what you think of when you think of a Chinese person. A picture of a few of them, you can see some cover their heads and some don't. There are different styles. There are more styles than this, but didn't have a photo with all the styles in. So here's a map of their distribution. Their concentrations, the northwest, that's Xinjiang, which is in the news a lot, and then coming down you've got Gansu, Qinghai, Ningxia, Shanxi in the middle, and down the bottom in the west-southwest would be Yunnan. This concentration over towards the east is a little misleading because each dot is 1,000 people and there's about 1 billion people living there. So it's not really what you'd call a concentration, although it looks like it on the map. So these are very much people who live at the border zone between two cultural entities, and some of the major historical and anthropological works done about the Hui have really it's a big point. So on the right, this is a history book, probably one of the most comprehensive English language history books, and English language ones tend to be more comprehensive than Chinese language ones for political reasons and academic integrity reasons, perhaps. So familiar strangers we know them, but they're different. So, are they with us or are they not? Between Mecca and Beijing is an anthropological study of one particular geographic location. It is geographically between Mecca and Beijing, but when you walk down the street there, when you talk to people there, it's very much, we're not at Beijing, we're not at Mecca, but we're kind of in both. So a way to picture it is like they're in the fault line between two of the tectonic plates of the Earth, two major land masses, which may have collided at some point in the history of the Earth, and there might be some turmoil in the collision place. They might move apart again, they might squash together, and there can be lots of potential for change in that space. So this is a real one, the one you can go to in Greenland or somewhere up there that's between, what are they called? Europe and North America. You can swim in it, so you can be in the liminal space, and there's places where you can put one foot on either side. And it's a really good picture, I think, of how these people live their lives. Now, the development of this idea of liminality started with a man named Victor Turner, who was looking at liminal times in a person's life and liminal rights. So initiation into a tribe as an adult, getting married, moving out of home, things like that. When you're at a time in your life where there's a lot of change. People who've ever been involved in university student ministry, well, that's one of the key things. It's like when you go to university, you're sorting out who you are. Are you going to go this way or that way? Then this concept was moved over to describe peoples, and I think the first people described was TCKs. I grew up in Pakistan, but I'm an American, sort of, which one am I? Am I a third kind of thing? And then as I read some things on insider movements, on identities of Muslim background believers, I read a guy called Jens Barnett who said his third culture family were displaying all these liminal characteristics, and then he noticed his Muslim background believing friends were doing the same things. And so it's become common to talk of MBBs or BMBs as liminal peoples too, and sorting out, will they go this way and become like the majority Christian culture? Will they go that way and be real Muslim insiders who follow Jesus? Will they be something in between, like a liminal prophet or a third kind of thing? Now, this bride in the picture is doubly liminal because she's a Hui person and she's a bride. She's not yet a Christian or a believer in Jesus, so maybe one day she'll get that one as well. So when I read all of this stuff, I was just, the Hui are like this even without a change in the time of life. The Hui are like this even without believing in Jesus. They're just like that. They're a cultural group that is both Chinese and Muslim, but they're not Han or Arab. So they're between Han Chinese and Arab Muslims. And it's how they define themselves a lot. And I think I'd like you guys to think today if there are other people groups that you think have some of the characteristics that I'm going to be talking about. So liminal people have coping strategies. It's quite hard to live in that liminal space, in that fault line between things. So they have to have coping strategies. They feel pulled from one side to the other. And you get this talking with TCKs, talking with MBBs, talking with Hui people. They all say these sort of things. So the first thing they do is they switch. They pop over here for a while, they pop back over there. It could be they spend years over here and years over there. It could be that within a conversation they go, oh, but I'm that, oh, but I'm this. So another thing they do is they'll suppress one. So you would have known of MBBs who have gone and joined a church that's even in another language, that they've gone and done all the things to try and impress that Christian group. So as I've read about him. Yes. He's got the history of he suppressed his Muslim identity, tried to be as Christian as he could for quite a while, didn't work for him, and then has sort of negotiated to this sort of in-between liminal space. Now, as I've talked to Asian peoples about this idea, they're wondering how it's different from face, because when you're face saving, you might go say one thing to this person, another thing to that person to keep them both happy. Oh, yes, I love eating pork, thank you very much. Oh, no, I would never eat pork, because you're trying to keep both happy. And that's very common in a lot of cultures. And it seems that for liminal people, it's much deeper inside them than trying to keep other people happy by telling what we might call a white lie. These are not lies. They're true. They're both true for the person. And even if there's a contradiction, a logical contradiction, I eat pork, I don't eat pork, they somehow within themselves hold both as equally true. And it's somehow a lot deeper than a face-saving kind of behaviour. So the third way that people will cope is to try and synthesise or hybridise, which is one of the things that MBB literature is saying is a good thing. And it works well. When it works, it can work really well. So I've got this guy, he's on that same fault line. He's trying to be in Europe, in America, but not in either, all at the same time. So he's trying to squeeze into the gap but he can't escape from being in both. And so I think that's kind of how some of these people try to live these lives. Some ways that Hui people do synthesis. So these are some Muslims at a mosque doing burning incense and praying to their ancestors. So it's a very Chinese thing to do, and it's a very Muslim thing to do. Here are a couple of mosques in China. Do they look like mosques? The sign on the front says mosque. And other than that, and the fact that they're in Linxia, you probably wouldn't know that they're mosques. They also don't have any of those statues of any kind of animal god type figures, so that's another clue that they're mosques. They also have mosques that look like this, and they've been very popular in the last sort of half a century to build more Middle Eastern style mosques. But in the last probably 2 years, concentrating this year, there's been a big, the Communist Party's noticed this pan-Islamic movement and is trying to get rid of it. So they're pulling down mosques that look like this and replacing them with mosques that look like those Chinese temple buildings. Now, this one's been under negotiation. They've decided that rather than demolishing the whole thing, they're just going to remove the 8 onion domes and replace them with a different type of roof. So onion domes are a symbol of separatism. This one I think will probably be safe. I think this is a very synthesised mosque. It's very Chinese, and it has an onion dome, and it has those round things poking out the top. So I think that's appropriately in between. Hui identities, you've got traditional grandmother looking after the child, covering her head. This is the mother looking after the child. It happens in the country where people don't have high employment. She's wearing a very modern, fashionable head covering. You also get people who you cannot tell if they're Hui at all. China's women and men equal employment, equal jobs, well, fairly equal. No, you wouldn't know unless you asked her. This lady is selling food, a very common, small business is very common for them, and I think because she's wearing the white hat, which is meant for men, and it doesn't fit her very well, I think she only wears it when she's at work, which is also very common. Men would also only wear their hat when they're at work because it's a symbol of this food is halal food. Another lady just looks exactly like a Chinese, and this is another lady doing, there's a deceased Sufi saint buried, and then you rub your skin on the cloth on the tomb and it will give you good luck. So the Sufi those kind of rituals that can synthesise with Chinese styles are quite well received. When Hui become Christians, an awful lot just go to a Chinese church. Some of them avoid eating pork, but some of them, to prove that they're really Christians, will start to eat it. And I know several Hui Christians who just say, I'm just like the other Christians. The only difference is on my ID card it says I'm Hui, but I don't feel Hui. You get some who continue in their mosque, and so far we have not encountered anyone who's a healthy insider in a mosque, not going to a church, not meeting with a Christian Bible study group. The ones that we have ministered to who choose this route or who are forced into this route, as they often are by arranged marriages or parents hassling them every day, nagging them, putting them under house arrest. People forced into this or who choose it tend to lose their faith or be very weak in their faith. And I've got a few friends who are really struggling. And it's true what they say, C6 people, they don't need judgment. They need our prayers. They need our support. Yeah. Most of the ones that I have been involved with will put them in small group Bible studies, 101 or just 5 people or something like that. And it might be associated with a church, it might not. Oh, what does that mean? 15? Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Okay. You didn't give me any warnings. Okay. Okay. I wasn't looking at you. You should have been right where I was looking. Okay. So here we go. Share the gospel with Muslims. We've got all these tools and they're available in Chinese. They're even available in Hui contextualized Chinese. Sharing the gospel with Chinese. They love these kind of things. Works really well. But when you go with, and we've got a Hui contextualized Bible, we've got the Han, standard Bible. What do you use? Well, kind of nothing works. We've got the Hui contextualized Bible in internet stuff, phone apps. We've tried storytelling, but they're all glued to their phone, so they can't concentrate on a story. Of course, I say all, but So you've got these 2 things and sets of things, and nothing really works because they're always going, but I'm not that. No, I'm not that. And we've had that so many times when you're sharing with them or when you're trying to disciple them. And so things we've come to expect is resistance to both Chinese and Islamic styles. So say to someone, there's a way to God through Jesus, and they go, don't talk about me about God, I'm a Communist Party member. And then you start saying, there really is a God who created the world. Don't talk to me about that, I'm a Muslim, of course I believe in God. So they'll dodge. And what connects is something about them, about their family, about their history. So number 2, when you're on a fault line, you do want to know about the 2 land masses on either side. But mostly you want to know what's happening when they collide. You do need to know what things are colliding. You need to spend more of your time on what's right here. So when I talk to someone about Muhammad, the eyes glaze over. When I talk to them about the warlord who 60 years ago saved their mosque from the Red Guards, 40 years ago, whatever, they're like, eyes light up, want to talk about him, he's my hero. And how can he be a link to Jesus? They change, it's a volatile space. They could go this way, they could go that way, and we need to be ready to change what we do. I have a friend who started drinking beer in order to reach these people. Was a teetotaler his whole life. Started drinking beer to reach them. I have other friends who've stopped drinking beer to reach them because it was a different group of Hui doing different things within their liminal space. The other thing which is really hard for a lot of Christians is to persist for a long time as a primary identity in Christ can take for anyone a long time to evolve. But for someone who does not have a category for primary identity, that can take a lot longer and can be very, very difficult to even understand. Why would I want to be more this than that? I've always been both, and I've always been neither. So I still have some questions that I don't know how to end my paper with. And so if you can help with any of these questions, please do. I look forward to talking afterwards.